Good morning and happy Sunday. My name is Kamina Chisholm. I do go by Kamina. I am assigned to the 567th Red Horse Squadron out of Goldsboro, North Carolina, Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. I'm currently assigned as a 32E, which is a civil engineer, and I currently am assigned as the engineering deputy flight commander for the unit. When talking about experience with air power, national security, warfare, and joint operations, I really do not have a lot of experience with these particular subjects. I have had the opportunity to do a joint exercise with the Army down in El Salvador last summer, where we did a humanitarian exercise. And I also have taken the GEOC course. They had it at that particular time. They had it in California, and I went out there. It was a week-long course, and I learned a lot because, as you know, it was a joint class, and we were able to get every service perspective on how we're able to come together and do a joint mission. So I really enjoyed that class. Moving on to the self-paced courses, the content that I would have to say that made me think differently, specifically to national security, was James Forsyth Jr.'s The Past as Prologue, Realist Thought and the Future of American Security Policy. He talks about how he believes that a lot of people believe that realism is dead and that there are a lot of critics of realism. What really intrigued me most about this article was that I had never I've heard of realism, but I had never heard of it as related to national security and the government, just in general. When you think of realism, you kind of think of someone who, how's the best way to put this? Someone who, you don't think of it being related to military. Something you don't really think of realism as something that's tangible to me. That's someone's thought and how they perceive something. So in his article, which he did a very good job, by the way. I agreed with everything, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of different things. But in the article, he talked about how realism has a lot of critics, and I could understand where this was at the beginning of the article, and I could understand where he was coming from with that. Because when I started reading this article, and I was like, well, I don't know if I really agreed. But as I continued to read through the article, he went on to discuss how the critics of realism, how a number of them are convinced that realism is inherently limited because it takes little account of global change and a line of attack that is sharpened considerably with the end of the Cold War. And so whenever he was talking about that, and I was like, yeah, I have to agree with the critics on this. But then he goes on and he talks about how he thinks as a realist. And he talked about how it related to U.S. policy, which that's where the eye-opener came for me. In this section, he talks about counterinsurgency, how it has a short life. He also talked about how the American policymakers have not had to deal with the political impact of social revolutions for some time, largely because they're such rare events. And so he's talking about this, and I was like, my eyes started opening. I started getting a couple aha moments when reading this article. And then in conclusion, he talks about how he does not believe realism is dead. And that's whenever I had to sit down and kind of think about it, because I was like, maybe he is right. Maybe realism is not dead, because he talked in his conclusion, he talks about how if we continue to believe in realism, it can shape our future on the advances of healthcare, technology, and communication, which we all know lead back to each of these points of these self-paced courses. Healthcare, technology, dealing with national security, dealing with air power, dealing with warfare. So, and then lastly, what I assess to be the most critical issue related to air power in the context of all of these in national security warfare and joint operations is that we as a U.S. military, we need to be able to continue to evolve with the changing times. One thing that I really hope that we will understand is that we have so many different technologies now that we did not have 10 years ago. At the start of this war, I just bought a new Apple Watch that I don't even have to have my cell phone with me to talk on my phone. If I accidentally leave my cell phone at home, you know, people can still call me. I can still get text messages. So the times are evolving. And in my opinions, we must continually to stay updated so that our national security is protected and that our warfare and joint operations are protected. Thank you.